So hi everyone. Penultimate talk before dinner, I guess. Thank you very much for patiently waiting all this while. Just before I tell you a little bit about myself, just a show of hands, how many of you are in your final year of graduation, like your degree? And the others are in earlier years, or are you guys finished? And so earlier years? Okay, great. And all of you are IT graduates, like doing IT? And also a show of hands if you also include a component of management and some business analysis in your degree. Anybody doing that? Excellent. Thanks very much. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. I work for a company called Blackboard Inc. Blackboard is a software development company, and it kind of does interaction between software and the good of humanity, because it actually produces software for charity organizations for fundraising. I started my life as a student very much like you, and it was interesting that just before I came for this talk and I was writing what I was going to present, I looked up your curriculum. And interestingly, some of the papers that you do now were very similar to the papers I did 20 years ago, almost. I mean, we did networks, we did database, we did a lot of similar subjects. But of course, things have changed. And just through my own career, I started life as a software engineer. And the first company that I worked for, CMC Limited, I worked on a turnkey project. So the traditional waterfall model, if any of you have done that in software engineering, like you kind of do analysis of a problem, you write a functional spec for your customer, and then as per the functional spec, you write a technical spec, and then you develop software. And you actually, it's a software application that your customer then ends up using, and it's being developed to their requirements. So I was lucky. I got to kind of work across that entire software development lifecycle, right from beginning to end, and then eventually ended up training my users on the software that we had developed as a group. So that was quite some time back. That was almost 20 years ago. And then when I came into Sydney, I worked for Deutsche Bank, and I joined their business, their investment banking division. And their investment banking division used to have their own IT group of people who used to pretty much develop applications for the products that they wanted to launch. So if the investment banking team wanted to launch a new basket for investments, or a new portfolio of investments that they wanted to sell to their customers, you would work in a team and you would develop the software as per those requirements. So that was something I did for in the initial stages, and then I kind of moved up to you become a team lead, and then you become a project manager, and you manage more such development projects. And then just before the dot-com bust, I don't know if you've heard about that in year 2000, a lot of companies were developing their own applications on the web, and a lot of money was being spent. So Deutsche Bank kind of also tried to do something similar, and interestingly, the project failed. So I learned a lot from that failed project as well. And then I kind of moved on to other things, and I joined a company called Copyright Agency Limited, which was also developing software in the copyright space. So digital copyright, and they were kind of, again, developing applications as per their requirements. So I worked in a team, with a team of people, and I kind of managed the software applications. And as part of that journey, I looked at a CRM tool. I was evaluating tools for them, and I came across a product called Netsuite. So just a show of hands, if any of you have ever heard the name Netsuite? Netsuite? No, okay, good, because I didn't expect you to. So that was my reaction as well. So I was evaluating CRM tools, as one of the presenters spoke earlier on, he mentioned Salesforce.com. So like that, I evaluated Netsuite as well. And I had just got off the back of a massive business intelligence project where you kind of do data warehousing, where you pull data from multiple applications into this big warehouse called this Cognos data warehouse. And then you point reporting tools on top of that warehouse to then produce what we call like business intelligence or smart reports for the consumption of the business. And that took me almost a year. Like, that project took almost a year. And then this tool that I was evaluating comes along, and I saw Netsuite. And Netsuite had business intelligence or reporting all built in. It could pull really smart reports. It could build dashboards straight out of day-to-day data that was being processed in that application itself. And I looked at it and I said, wow, I mean, what was I wasting my time like a whole year on trying to build this, and this just comes out of the box? So I really fell in love with that product. And I said, this is the technology for the future. And that's when I kind of moved careers, and I moved into NetReturn, which was a company which was implementing NetSuite for a lot of different companies. So I thought that's really what I wanted to do. And I went into a professional services consultant role, very different from what I had done before. And I started implementing NetSuite for a suite for different companies. And the companies could be different business models. They could be retail companies, they could be financial companies, they could be auto dealers like car companies, or the aftermarket companies from being just selling paint, car paint, and a lot of different components. So I found that was really interesting because it gave me an exposure to a lot of different business models. And that's where I felt I really had a passion for, trying to understand how businesses make money. And I was implementing NetSuite for them. I then joined, and then NetSuite themselves came into Australia. They bought NetReturn, and they started implementing and selling NetSuite to other customers. I then joined another software company, Atlassian, which you may or may not have heard of. It's a huge software development company. It's now kind of spread across to the US as well. I didn't actually develop software for them, but I implemented NetSuite for them internally. And I'm doing similar stuff for Blackboard, like I've implemented NetSuite in Australia, in the UK, in Ireland, and in the US. So one thing that has definitely changed from the times where we were building apps in the old days, like you saw a lot of those technologies alluded to in the previous presenters, where literally you had a server, you had a client, you had these big machines, you literally had like a server room where you walked in with I remember those days when we were asked to take our shoes off and we walked into the server rooms because of just in case because you wanted to keep them clean, the environment was kept clean. So it was kind of cool, very different from what today's software is all about. So what I feel has definitely changed is the cloud platform. And that's where it's the architecture that is very different from what was there before. And why cloud? Like, this is a question that I would like to raise with you guys. If you look at your customer bases, if I look at you and your generation, and today's student worlds, today's millennia, as you all are called, I don't know if you know, but there's Gen X, there's Gen Y, and then there's the millennia. So you grew up as digital natives, you're used to using your mobile devices, your handheld devices, and you don't own products anymore. It's not about ownership. A lot of you use Uber instead of actually driving around. You use Airbnb instead of renting rooms and owning property. You subscribe to music that you listen. You don't own stacks of CD or stacks of records or films. You just subscribe to software. So if you look at yourselves as the future customers of any organization, the consumption of goods has changed. So it's not about products anymore. It's more about services. And it's not about ownership. It's not about possessing these things. It's all about having access to these things. There's more sharing around. There's more services-based approach to any company that wants to take off and launch. So, so you can see that in just the world, the consumer world has radically changed from where it used to be 10 years ago. And that's where any company, any new idea that wants to launch off or go to market, they have to then cater to that kind of a customer base. They have to think of the scalability and the quick, fast-growing market that they have to address, and that's the need for today. So if you imagine that a business or any group of people come up with an idea and they want to take to market, they may or may not have the time to have a specific software or a program developed for them as per their requirements, like, as was done in the past. They want to see if their idea will launch and launch quickly to be able to then generate that marketplace to be able to sell their goods or sell their idea or sell their services. And that is where the technical platform of something like Netsuite comes in. Because Netsuite is a whole ERP tool in itself. It lets you take goods to market. It lets you sell things quickly or launch your ideas in space, literally, like, in the cloud. And you can see that applications, if we develop applications, you can't imagine an application without being mobile first. You would look for anything on your iPhone or on your handheld devices. So technology has had to change to cater to these requirements. And any business would like to kind of, appeal to all different platforms and be available in a form that is going to be most used. And therefore, cloud is the preferred computing architecture today. So it's not only just the computing architecture for IT organizations, it is also the architecture for business organizations. Because businesses today know that if they have to bring anything to market really quickly, they need to have that framework ready to use on day dot. They will not have the time or the luxury to be able to get specific programs or specific shopping carts built exclusively for them and then be able to take things to market. So this is where software as a service comes into play. Like, the previous speakers talked about Amazon, and then you are all familiar with Google. Like, there's a lot of services that are available now, a lot of software that is available as a service, and you just simply have to subscribe to it. You don't have very many companies today that have infrastructure within. They don't have in-house infrastructure. Like, they don't have their own hardware. They just like to subscribe to software. And most of the software that they subscribe to then comes with its underlying architecture, its own underlying hardware. The whole IT skill set is kind of changing. You need more and more software service providers rather than, guys who used to look after IT hardware. And companies are happy to not take that responsibility of managing those servers in-house, of looking after them. They like to have their applications available as software so that they can just subscribe to it, use it for the period that they want, and then if for whatever reason things don't go to plan, they can then just disassemble or stop using the license. They don't have to worry about getting rid of servers. They don't have to worry about getting rid of IT. They can then just simply stop using the license that they had bought. So companies have a hybrid model, like and even if you see the traditional makeup of companies, their lifespan has reduced from 30 to 40 years to now just 15 years. You see a lot of companies launch off, and either they disappear because their idea wasn't great, or they get, if they were really, really successful, they get bought by other bigger companies. There's this whole mergers and acquisitions out there. So that's the nature of things today. And IT graduates who come out, just like I remember back in my days, we had lots of different things that we had studied. We had done projects, as was just explained earlier, lots of cool projects. But when you come to the real world, you see that there could be demands very different from the projects that you've done. So this is what I wanted to share with you. There is another platform other than just developing your own code or just being hardcore developers. There's opportunities out there that you can also embark on, which will still nurture your development capabilities, will still nurture that creator in you, but it's just done in a different form. It's done more as a solution that you provide to either a problem or a business need. And for that solution, you don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to start from building your first line of code. You can take a framework that exists out there, and you can pre-use some of the capabilities of that framework, and then add what we call customized pieces to that framework to then offer a solution to a business need or a solution to a problem. So that's what I wanted to share with you. So just a little bit about Netsuite, for those of you who haven't heard about it. Netsuite started way back in 1998, just 2 years after Google itself was launched. And it was one of the few companies that was on the cloud framework from day dot. So it didn't go through this transition phase where it had to transform its architecture from being, client server or something else. It started its life as being a cloud solution. So by ERP, I mean the enterprise resource products, like, they give you solutions for a business from start to finish. So NetSuite, even though it launched in 1998, it had its own kind of lifespan, and in 2014, it was number 8 on the scale of in comparison to other ERP tools. But very quickly, in 2015, it came up to number 6, and in 2016, it's now the number 1 platform. It's used by more than 30,000 organizations around the world. It was recently bought by Oracle just a couple of months back. Even though Oracle themselves, like, Larry Ellison, who was the Oracle CEO, he himself kind of funded the initial launch of NetSuite. And NetSuite kind of launched at the same time as Salesforce.com, which was a pure CRM tool. And it initially started off just as a small to medium enterprise solution provider. But very quickly, it grew to have customers as big as large enterprises like Groupon, like Atlassian, like a lot of very different customers. And a lot of startups have used NetSuite as well, because when you think of startups, like, if you look at their profiles, a group of people come together, they have a beautiful idea, they want to take it to market, and they have used NetSuite as a platform to take their ideas to market. Because NetSuite, not only does it provide you an operating platform, like, to give you the e-commerce engine, to be able to put your products and services on the web, it also has a complete financial system, it has a marketing system, it has an order processing system, as well as a financial system, all built into one. So for any business that is, like, looking for an agile, scalable, and flexible solution, NetSuite provides a great opportunity. And it takes the pain away from developing a software right from scratch. It takes the pain away from buying and installing infrastructure. And it lets the business idea, or the people who came up with this idea to launch that business, focus on their innovation, really focus on the business niche that they want to address. So, and it gives the ability to that group of people, like, to take their idea quickly to market and see whether if it's going to be successful or not. And you must have heard of a lot of great ideas that get launched, and sometimes they're not successful. But the thing is, the ideas, you can start pretty quickly and see if your idea is successful. And if for whatever reason it is not, you have enough bandwidth to then start again if you need to. So that's what NetSuite gives you, because you can start off on the journey with just a license, as small as 5 user licenses, and you can just start with maybe a year or 6 months of engagement to see if your idea really launches well. And if it doesn't, then you don't have to lose anything, because your investment has been small. You just do away with those licenses, but you don't have to start from scratch, having invested in infrastructure or invested in people. You're not at a loss. So just to give you an overview of what skills you need to be able to work in these kind of space, where you kind of use a platform that is available for you already. You need to have an understanding of a business process. So you need to have some idea of what a business actually is end to end. So I don't know if you do you guys do like a management subject where you cover what a business organization has in terms of business processes? Do you kind of go through business processes as part of your degree? Show of hands, if you do. No? Okay. But they're not difficult skills to acquire. So you can, there's lots of graduate programs out there where companies will take young graduates and actually take them through the journey of helping them understand what an end-to-end business process can involve. You, of course, have to have problem-solving skills, which all of you, I'm sure, do, because you do solve problems. Currently, you may be doing it in the space of, your projects, or some problems that you've been given to you as assignments. But as you join the real workspace, you see that there are problems or ideas out there that businesses are looking for to get an IT solution. And they are looking to solve specific problems. So NetSuite, even though it comes pre-packaged with a lot of things out of the box, it also is a development platform in itself. So it's got JavaScripting behind it. It's got a lot of capability where you can use it as a complete development platform to then build solutions on top of what is already available. And just through my journey, when I've implemented NetSuite for different businesses, every business model is different. Every organization has problems that are very different from other businesses. And they all want to establish their niche or their cutting edge in the market space to be market leaders. And that's where they would like solutions to be designed very specifically for their business, or very specifically to a business offering that they may have, which is very, very specific to their organization. And that's where you can go and use NetSuite as a platform to develop some of those solutions. And also, any business eventually has to have a financial system at the end. It has to make a profit. So a little bit of accounting skills really help, even if they are quite fundamental and basic to start with. What NetSuite does is, for students, I feel that NetSuite's a great platform for young graduates to actually get familiar with what a business end-to-end a business process looks like. So even if you're not familiar with what financial accounting would actually entail in a business environment, NetSuite gives you that platform to be able to then learn very quickly what an order processing workflow looks like, what a marketing workflow looks like, and what just an order to cash process will look like, what procurement actually means. And you can learn these business processes very quickly through the NetSuite platform. And you can use it as an educational platform, because NetSuite provides what is called a Suite Academy. And let me just show you that. So just what I was talking about earlier is NetSuite brings all the different processes together. It's a common engine where you can actually see what a lead, when you are looking for customers, if you've got a business idea and you're looking for customers out there, you initially, you could just be having a conference like this, and people interested in a business idea could come and attend. And they then become leads for possible future sales. So a typical lead to order or order to cash process in any typical organization would look like, you would have lead generation through your marketing, where you could send emails, or you could run a campaign where you could send emails out to your leads. And then based on the interest that they've exhibited, they can then be prospects, and you could see an opportunity amongst that group of leads, or not customers yet, but who could be potential customers down the track. And then you could send them, if they're interested in your product or service, you could send them what is called a quote, or an estimate of what your product will cost, or what your service will actually what it could possibly mean for you. So you could give different combinations of your products and services, and actually generate what is called an order, or a sales order in a system. And then you could just, if the customer finally says, yes, I'm ready to go forward with it, ready to buy this product or service, you could then generate what is called an invoice. We are all used to bills, and we've seen what invoices look like, but NetSuite will let you generate an invoice, and then you can get a payment against that customer, against that invoice, and that then directly hits your bottom line to then make a profit. So you can not only do this you can do this, some of this can be done manually if you've got the power to do it, but you have the manpower to do it, but you can also do it completely online, where it's a self-service product launch or a self-service service is available on the net for anybody to go and then have a look as to, they want to buy it or not, and there's, the complete capability of what is called an e-commerce suite straight out of the box. It gives you the ability that, if you've got all your products listed and all your services that you want to sell or take to market, you can launch a website in less than an hour. And that website is going to be an interactive website, which will then let you purchase, let your customers purchase your goods and services with their orders coming straight into the system. And that's the kind of speed that organizations look for. They want to launch their ideas as quickly as possible. So this is just a single view to what NetSuite offers out of the box. So what I was thinking is I'll just point you I wanted to give you a quick overview of places where you could go to. So there's Suite Academy, which is out there, where you can actually see what NetSuite looks like as a product. You can actually have a look at some of the self-running demos and see if you're really interested in that. And then you can also actually look at some of the customer stories that have been shared on the website. So just with that, I'll leave you with just one little thought, especially for my girls out there, for the women in the audience. I'm very passionate about women in IT, and I feel that IT is something that gives you work-life balance, and it's a great platform to if you've got innovative ideas, if you've got creativity that you want to create things, then you can do it through this great platform. So just before I take any questions, I'm just going to run this. I don't know if it's going to be heard, but.
Different kinds of cool things, and there's no limit what you can do.
One inventor is Benjamin Franklin.
Leonardo da Vinci. Thomas Edison. Albert Einstein. Nikola Tesla. Alexander Bell Graham. No. It's kind of a tough one.
In school, it was always a male inventor. I just realized.
So thank you very much, and if you've got any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Sorry, we don't have time for
That's
questions.
fine, no problems,
But,
yep.
Yeah, if anyone has questions, you can always find her afterwards.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you very much for your speech, and can we have a round of applause?